This is Rabbi Son, hot takes on news, pop culture, and religion, hosted by Rabbi Patrick and my son Javon. Spiritual, irreverent, always fearless, produced by the wonderful people at Darshan Yeshiva. Javon, how are you doing today?
Fine.
He's doing fine. All right, you know what's not fine? School shootings. So let's get into it. Okay, what you got for us?
Okay, 31,000 children have been affected by school shootings across 21 states in 2024. All right, so, like I said, 31,000, the number of K-12 students who experienced school shootings this year alone, according to, post data. Okay, 13, the number of people killed in school shootings since the start of the year, including the teenage students, the teachers who were killed at the most recent school shooting, that being the one in Madison, Wisconsin. Almost 50 others, who were shot this year survived. I don't know about they did 13, but they're like the median amount of people. I'm just assuming.
Yeah.
The number of states that the school shooting took place in, including the District of Columbia, 21 states. The number of school shootings since the Columbine massacre in April 1999, in which 12 students and one teacher were killed. Yeah, so 226 mass school shootings
since Columbine. 226 school shootings. So what is a mass school shooting? So this isn't like a kid brings a gun to. Is it all times?
I think I think isn't mass shooting more than 4.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought it was more than 4.
Because I'm wondering, if a kid brings a gun to a school, then that's not a shooting because they just brought a gun. But if they obviously hurt someone,
someone gets
that's
shot.
A shooting. But does that count as a mass school shooting? So is the gun violence rate in schools actually way higher than even something like this? The 226. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's even more strange to think about. Because the school shooting thing, I feel like that's a very sensational thing. And 226 is a frightening number. It's 226 over a 20-year period. So you're talking about 10 a year. Is that, I guess, about right? Yeah. So, okay.
All right. So,
how many times did kids bring guns to school and didn't shoot anybody in the meantime? Probably more than 10 times in a year.
Yeah, but why?
Right?
Well, you asked why would you bring guns to school, but I don't know that answer. So I'm going to skip some of the articles because I really want to get into this. So, the median age for school shooters, according to the New York Washington Post, is 16.
The median age is 16
exactly.
Of people that are killed or
people that are committing.
Are committing. The median age is 16. So it's happening in high schools. So it's 14 to 18. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
but that's 16, just smack dab in the middle of 16, 18, 14, 16. It's is that the height of teen? 16? Is that the height of teen?
You're closer to teen than I am, so.
I know, but I'm old.
He's old. He's 19.
Exactly. But
soon to be 20, but not
no, because
long
people
enough.
say I'm old. So
you are an old soul. We've talked about you've been on this planet.
So I can't, I can't, relate to the young people.
Oh, you can't.
To the young people. No, but
either.
I don't know.
I'm wearing a t-shirt for a band that was alive before I was born, so what do I know?
Yeah, but I don't know. Is that, I would say 16 is the height of teen. It's that big milestone, that.
Yeah, I felt like when I was 16 that I was the least, I was sort of at my least, not autonomous. Is that the word I'm looking for? I had the least amount of autonomy for the amount that I wanted.
Freedom, you mean?
Freedom, yeah. Well, because so, granted in my life, we had just moved when I turned 16. So that also affected a little bit because I didn't have friends in the city I lived in and I didn't go to high school. So that was a whole thing. But I didn't have a car yet. So and also we didn't have the amazing amount of social media and internet and all of that. You kind of had to make your own fun. So I feel like if I were 14 and that had happened, it would have been like, oh, okay, like I'm a kid, like I'll play video games. If I were 18, I would have been old enough to be like, peace out, guys. Like, I'm going to go find something to do. 16 was like the most amount of, I think the word you're looking for is angst.
Yeah. I was thinking that. Like,
yeah, that's the word. Yeah, it's the most amount of angst with the least amount of ability to deal with the angst. Right? You're not mature enough to handle it, but you're also not so much of a kid that you don't have the angst, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I don't know. I would say for these people to be in high school, I would think, more violence would occur in middle school.
Middle school is awful. I mean,
yeah, like, that's like starting the puberty. Your body is turning into, your mind is frazzled. And I would think that would be the place where violence is more likely to occur, considering like you're so scrambled. But like,
right,
if the median age is 16, then I don't know. I guess because some people do have bad high school experiences. That wasn't me. But like, middle school was pretty terrible for everybody.
Right,
like, it's not really a hot time.
Right.
To be anywhere.
Right.
So I just find that weird. I would have thought that
more violence would happen younger.
Yeah.
Well, so is there something to do with like access to weapons? Like maybe you wouldn't have had access to weapons at 12 the way you would at 16.
Okay, speaking of,
I mean, not you specifically as an individual. Yeah, I'm not saying that, but like,
speaking of, the percentage of weapons used in school shootings that originated from homes of friends, relatives, or parents in cases where the source of the gun could be determined, according to the Postage tracker. More than half of the school shootings in the U.S. were carried out by children, none of which would have been possible if those children didn't have access to that firearm, that percentage being 86.
So 86% of the weapons that are used come from friends, family, neighbors. Is exactly. That okay? All right. Yeah. I mean, I that makes sense because where else are you getting them from?
I mean, but how many friends, family, and relatives would just give a 16-year-old a weapon? Like, that doesn't make like.
Well, and what does it mean by give or have access? Because like if you steal a weapon from like your friend's parents, no one gave you access to that. You stole it. You know what I mean?
That's the point of having laws that have that weapon supposed to be protected.
Well, true.
Like in lockup. So therefore, that means.
So it's negligence. Yeah.
Exactly. And those people should be charged. Like, because how did you know that your weapon left your home probably for a significant amount of time, went unnoticed, and then like your like son's friend ended up on the news, and they're like, where did he get this weapon from? And then it's like, oh, from your house? How do you know it was missing?
Right.
Like, because that's like extreme that you didn't check on your kid. Like, you didn't check on like what is the point of you having like firearms if you don't like make sure they're there?
Right.
Like, isn't that the point of having them and like making sure they're there so when you need them, it is that like, oh, I know where it is and I can find it, and then boom, bam.
It's the sort of nonchalant nature of those like people and the way that they hold their weapons. They're keeping them under a bed or in a dresser or something like that. They're not in a locked box. And,
and even so, like, I get that some parents give their hunting is the big thing, right? Especially in like the more rural places. So get that. Granted, got it,
right?
But that child should not have access to that gun,
right,
24/7.
Yeah.
And you as a parent should have that key to that.
Yeah.
Like on you at all times.
Right.
Like to no point should that child have access to that key unless y'all are going out and doing something.
Right.
Like, I get like some people feel like, oh yeah, I bought the gun for you and like you know how to use it safely. I don't think it's like a safety issue. It's a how do you know if your kid is stable or not issue.
Right.
Because like
you don't know what's going on at school. You don't know what's going on in their personal life.
And even if you ask, doesn't mean they're going to tell you the truth.
Right.
Like, once again, they're 16.
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah, I mean, pulling it back from the public policy side, I mean, I do think you're right though that like 16 is a particular age of like you're dealing with the weirdness of the hormones and stuff from like middle school. You're a little more socially mature than you were in middle school, but that probably makes it even worse because it's not sort of things like, does that boy like me? It's,
Are they talking about me? Are they saying I'm fat? Are
right,
they like
right,
boom,
right.
boom,
It
boom,
all
boom?
kind of is, yeah, there's more piled on top of it. So even if you can handle some parts of it, you have so many more social pressures and you're being told by society. And I think this is kind of, it's an unfair thing in America. And I think as an old person, I'll kind of own this a little bit. It is kind of unfair that we tell high schoolers they are adults
Mm.
because that's technically true. Like you turn 18 in this country, and legally there's certain amounts of
You
adulthood
can
that
sign
come.
contracts. You can
Right,
like
right,
do all this
right.
stuff.
An 18-year-old with a bunch of money could buy a house.
Mm.
I mean, technically, right? You can sign a contract. If for some reason you have buku bucks, like you could do that, right? But you still have to go to like AP trigonometry class at 9 a.m. And if you don't, you're going to get in trouble, right?
Mm.
So it is this weird, like, we don't do a good job of differentiating like adult and not adult. It's more of this like spectrum.
Yeah, no, because it's like you tell, especially like for I would say for 16, it's like you're being told that you have to have your life together basically. In that
Yeah, and it's
this is the
unfair.
make or break
Right.
situation. This is the moment. So not only do you have the academic pressures and like societal pressure
Right.
of like getting through, then you have like also the people who are around you, your peers, still you're still in that setting, drama that comes in,
Right.
all of that stuff. Then it's like all these things like
Yeah.
hitting. Some people can manage it.
It's funny, like we didn't prepare in advance that we were going to talk about this stuff, and in the 16 thing as well. I actually spent part of my morning today thinking about when I was 16 and how incredibly cushy my life was.
Mm.
Like it was depressing because, I was new to a city. We moved to Washington State in December. I mean, we literally had like Thanksgiving dinner on the drive from Atlanta to Washington State, and we ate in like a Denny's. Like it was so like, and I was like really sick. It was terrible. But we arrive in this, like, it's like snowing, it's dark at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like this nerdy, weird kid. I'm sort of not in high school anymore, which is a whole other story. And then we're living in a hotel. And we lived there for like a year. And my like 16th birthday was like my mom and dad and I and like their business partner's wife, like sitting there while I'm like eating like, a brownie sundae for like happy birthday. Like, you've been here for, a month and like, whatever. But it was super cushy because I went to school at home because I was an alternative school. And I hung out in a hot tub every morning and I ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a restaurant, and like hung out in like a lounge. It was literally the cushiest like life ever. It was like living in an all-inclusive resort, but mixed with like having no friends, having no like purpose, and like being like 16 and awkward, and like the only other person I was around who was also my age was like not the kind of person that I would hang out with. Like she would not, like we had nothing in common. It just wasn't gonna, be anything. But funny that you'd bring that up. Okay, anyway, back to your topic though. So like 16, yeah, I mean this is probably why the rabbis in the reform movement got rid of bar mitzvahs, because they were like, at 13 we can't expect you to be held religiously accountable, and they moved it to 16.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, there you go. Like, yeah, people be struggling.
But this was 16 back in like the early 1800s, early to late 1800s.
Yeah, and like
So
really,
16 was different back then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 13 was different back then too.
Right.
I mean, 13, like 13-year-olds now are bigger than 13-year-olds.
Right.
Then, like,
well, yeah, because they're not starving.
Standpoint.
Yeah, they're not
like,
starving and emaciated and working
like,
in fields and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, maybe it was just like, oh yeah, they're 13. They probably won't live until 16.
Oh God.
I'm just like,
yeah,
give them something.
Oh no, I mean like there's you could do a whole lesson on like ages in Judaism, because there are questions about like age of maturity and all this other stuff. And like, yeah, part of the problem was people didn't live that long. And people like biologically or physiologically, I don't know what the right word is, matured in a different way back then. Yeah. So this question of like, or like with the law today, like if you commit a heinous enough crime, you get charged as an adult. Well, so it goes back to that spectrum of like, well, so
Yeah, but that's still...
when were you an adult? Are you an adult at 16 when you want to use your parents' car? No. Are you an adult at 16 when you commit a violent crime? Apparently, yes.
No, but like even with that, that's like, if you're 14, because they do have ages with that stuff. It's like,
do they?
Yeah, it's like if you commit a crime at 16, then they'd be like, okay, you're an adult.
Okay.
And if you commit a crime at 14, they're like, no, you're still a kid. So they have like different things for that. I don't know. I just with the crime aspect, it's like you want to say they knew better,
okay,
because you knew better.
Oh yeah,
but
that's
you
a
can't
good. Yeah, right.
Think about what you know better,
right?
Because you're not them, and they probably don't know better.
Now, what about this stuff that they're saying now about the brain doesn't finish developing until age 25?
Okay, now I
just, that sort of goes into that spectrum of like where did adult happen? Or in America, 21 to drink alcohol or buy marijuana. That's another one.
Yeah, I think that we save that for our next topic.
Okay.
But, in closing, with this topic in particular, it is just, I don't know. I think Gen Alpha is going to have, like, I don't want to say it worse, but, like, more problems.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to school.
Yes.
And, like, dealing with this. And, like, the, like, stricter schools are having to become.
Right.
Like, I already say school was a prison before. But, like, now it's, like, most definitely a prison. Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to have yard time? Like, specific groups of kids have to go outside at this specific time, while being monitored. Like, they already have metal detectors. Like,
right.
It's like...
They started that when I was probably in college or something like that in the high schools.
Yeah, but they didn't do them all in all high schools. Yeah. Now, because I heard somebody gossiping at, the beauty salon.
That's where the best tea is spilled. We all know.
About like Chesterfield schools and like them not allowing kids to have their phones anymore.
Oh, right. Yeah, that just happened. Yeah.
That is like but they're like them as parents, they're thinking about it like, why can't they have their phone out? Because first they were doing it like, no phone while giving instruction.
Okay.
And
that seems fair.
Yeah, and then other people, but they were like, now they're saying you can't have it out at lunch. And then you can't have it out at all.
Interesting.
And they're like, why don't they want the kids to have, their phones out? Okay. Like, if you're not teaching anything, like, you're not doing anything you don't want in the class, okay? You can't check it in the hallway. What's the harm in checking your phone in the hallway while going to class?
Are kids, like, showing up late to class because they're too busy on their phones?
How to walk and to scroll, it is not.
You know what? People joke about some people can't walk and chew gum.Maybe this is one of those examples. You can't walk and be on your phone at the same time.
No, but their concern was that this has nothing to do with learning.
Right.
And it has things to do with what's actually going on in the school. And like, why don't you want the kids to have their phones? Because you don't want it to be recorded. Because y'all are doing things.
Oh, I see.
That are like, so that's what their worry is.
Okay.
And plus, they were black.
I was supposed to say well, okay. What does that have to do with
I don't know. Black people are very like, you're raised cautious.
Yeah, and suspicious of government, suspicious of, institutions, I would think, on some level.
Yeah, so you're like, I think their mind is coming from, it's like, what are you doing? Like, what are the schools not doing? Because I think this is a bigger issue than like, phones. I do think that there's a lot of pressure on kids. It's like we're talking about with this, and 16. That is like the big age. That is like the age that's like all this pressure is like, look, if you don't do well now, your life is going to be terrible. Yeah. It's going to be in the mud. You're going to jail, basically. Right. That's how they paint it out to be. Right. And it's like, your friends, social circles change. Then like, boom, 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 boom. Not saying that it's right, to go and, make all these convoluted plans to go do something. but like I could see where not justifying, but you can see how everything builds until like you know.
You can see where you don't have to, yeah, because it's the whole thing of like there's a difference between a reason and an excuse, right? There's a reason why things happen, but making an excuse out of it doesn't work. So, but you could see a reason why a 16-year-old might have a lot of problems and think that that's the way out.
Exactly.
But that's not a good reason. It's
Exactly.
not. Yeah, right. I agree, 100%. Yeah. Well, and the phone thing. I mean, look, I could see why, as a parent, I wouldn't have wanted you to be on. Well, and I didn't want you to be on your phone in class. And when you told me that you were allowed to have your phone out, I at first was like, I knew you weren't lying to me, but it was to me it was such an absurd idea that people would have their phones out. And you're like, no, no, no. If instruction's done, you're allowed to have your phone out. I'm like, if I was teaching high school history or business or whatever, and I saw a kid on their phone, even if I wasn't talking, I'd be tempted to grab the phone and chuck it at the side of the wall, you know? But like, I get it. And in that moment when you told me that, I was like, well, I A, believe you, and B, like, that doesn't surprise me. And it would annoy me. At the same time, though, you hear about this news, like this shooting that took place. Would I then want you to not have your phone on you?
Exactly.
Right. And like, so that's a conflict, right?
Yeah, and people like the defense of not wanting kids at the phone, like, well, the school can contact you.
Well, but if the school's been taken over
if
by,
the school is
right,
like in an emergency,
right,
like you won't know what's going on. So
right,
like you're like in the dark, and it's like for schools, because now this is not all schools, but sometimes when violent incidents happen, the parents do not notify the school do not notify the parents, and they try to like
cover
sweep
it up,
and clean it up.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, I mean, we saw that in Virginia. That happened in kind of a famous case here, not worth talking about, but
I don't know what you're talking about. But,
I'll say it off. I'll say it offline.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I just don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's strange to me because you've maybe seen me with it before, where we get these automated alerts once a month that are tested to our phones in the event that there's like a security issue in Virginia, and it's part of this whole safety protocol that rabbis and Jewish leaders get. God forbid some awful thing is going on, whatever. So I would be surprised that there isn't, and maybe there are in some schools, basically a panic button that gets pushed by an administrator and it automatically sends out some kind of text to all the cell phones being like, we're on lockdown or something like that.
I think that does happen.
Yeah. I would think that it would.
Yeah, but I do think, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It's just like,
because we have Amber Alerts, we have all these other things.
Yeah, but I do think that if like a kid in the school like gets caught like sending out threatening things to students, like that kid should not be allowed back in that school.
Right.
Like,
right.
Because it's like, no, it's like, why wouldn't you want people to be notified of that? Like, there is a potential danger in that kid's school, and that is a danger. If someone is threatening to mass harm on the student body, I feel like the school should notify that there's a child taken into questioning on those things, instead of the parent having to find it out from their kid, and then there's like this huge ruckus, rather than like being like, look, this is what happened today. The kid is in custody. No, that kid will not be allowed to come back to the school. I think that needs to be a serious conversation people need to have.
I feel like if Israel can send out text messages to hundreds of thousands of people telling them that bombings are about to happen, then the local high school should be able to figure out something that's at least
the government should be able to figure it out. We have Amber Alerts.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if there is something, but no one ever told me about it when we signed you up for high school. So,
any thought?
Well, definitely. I mean, just as we've thought about the idea of like age of maturity and the idea of like developmental stages, we probably need to think about that a little bit better with the law. And I guess we have on some level, but yeah, I mean, that's all I have to offer to that. I don't know what we do about school shootings. It's beyond me.
No, like I said, I still feel like we should have an automated system that if a child makes those threats,
Oh, sure. Yeah,
a message sent out, and then it's like, okay, yeah, no, it's a wrap for him.
Yeah,
like
Transparency is the best thing you can do. Here's what happened. Here's how we resolved it. If you have any questions, here's who you can talk to.
Exactly. Then it's like, it's a wrap for this kid. They're going to an alternative school. They're going to an alternative situation where there will be more closely monitored. Like,
I mean, I went to alternative school not because I did anything terrible, but I was definitely closely monitored.
Exactly.
All right. Well, this is Rabbi and Son. Thank you so much. Thank you, Javon. Thank you to our sponsors at Darshan Yeshiva for making this content possible. Darshan Yeshiva provides beginner-level online Jewish learning, including the very popular Conversion to Judaism program, with sponsoring rabbis and students all over the world. Start your Jewish journey any place, anywhere, and anytime with our conservative, reform, reconstructionist, Jewish renewal, humanistic, and post-denominational rabbi mentors. Become the Jew you always wanted to be with Darshan Yeshiva.